Dana White has just announced Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway for the BMF title for UFC 300. He also announced Jim Miller versus Bobby Green. But I want you to hear from the man himself. I can talk about how this is going to affect the lightweight title picture, what's going on with Islam Makahchev, who's really next for the title, and all of that. Let's get started right now.
All right, guys, I got two more fights for you for UFC 300. Jim Miller, 40 years old, is the all-time leader in UFC wins at 26. He's got the most UFC finishes in lightweight history at 16, and he's tied for most submissions in UFC lightweight history with Charles Oliveira at 10. And now he is attempting to break into the top 15 in one of the nastiest divisions in the sport. And he will be facing the guy that fights anyone, anytime, anywhere, Bobby Green.
Okay, so number one, this is what I want to know. Is Jim Miller retiring or not? Because I was under the impression Jim Miller was going to retire on UFC 300. That's why he lobbied so hard to be on this card, because he was on 100, he was on 200. What better place to retire than on UFC 300? I know some people are saying, is this a Jim Miller title run that he's going on? Please, no. He is 40 years old. I am sorry. You're a 40-year-old lightweight. It is so impressive that he is actually stringing together wins at this point in his career. But listen, we got to end this somewhere, and I thought UFC 300 was the perfect place. Now, this fight with Bobby Green, don't get me wrong. It's a good fight, but at the same time, I would actually rather see a Jim Miller versus a Tony Ferguson, or even a Jim Miller versus a Clay Guida. I feel like retire them both. Why not? And what's the deal with Paul Felder? Like, let me say this. What if, instead of this, the fight announcement was, we're going to do Jim Miller against Clay Guida, or Jim Miller against Tony Ferguson, let's say that. Retirement fight, both of them get to go out, one gets to go out on a win though, and we're going to do Paul Felder, because Paul Felder is coming back, he entered the USADA pool, they gave him the date and month of UFC 300 for his return date. We still don't have an opponent. If you're anything like me, I thought it was going to be Paul Felder versus Jim Miller. That's a good fight. And maybe even a Paul Felder versus a Bobby Green. Because, brutally honest, if we're looking at Jim Miller, Paul Felder, who do you think's going to actually go on a semi-successful title run? Paul Felder has a win over Charles Oliveira. In fact, before Islam Makahchev beat Charles, the last person to beat Charles Oliveira was Paul Felder. That's what I thought we were going to do. But, okay, that's enough ranting there. I'll rant a little bit more about the end of this video, but we got to get through this.
Bobby hasn't seen a scorecard in 2 years. His fights do not go the distance, and he's got 20 finishes, and his style is in your face, moving forward, pushing the action the entire time. This fight has been scheduled 3 times, but this is the time that matters. Another fight. 50 wins between them, 34 finishes, 2 of the best strikers in the sport, 2 of the most durable fighters in the sport, 2 of the most aggressive guys in the sport. Gaethje destroys all guys with leg kicks and power in both hands. Max is regarded by many to be the best boxer in the UFC and has made many top 10 guys look like they don't even belong there with him. 2 of the all-time greats in their division, and this fight will be 5 rounds for the BMF title. So, we got Bobby Green versus Jim Miller, Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway.
There we go. I'm going to end there. He really just says, see you soon, just the normal Dana White shit. Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. Now, one thing that I've been kind of surprised by is, from what I'm getting from you guys, this is actually a pretty, controversial matchup. I would have thought Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje would have been a universally loved matchup, but I've actually found that at least 40% of the fan base, at least that support me, are not a huge fan of this fight. Now, I get it. I think Justin Gaethje is going to beat Max Holloway. I think it's going to be close. Don't get me wrong. I think Justin Gaethje's chin is on its way out. But at the same time, Max Holloway barely has power for featherweight. Yup, I said it. I know he KO'd the Korean Zombie, a dude that was on his final fight in the UFC. Don't get me wrong, it's impressive, but y'all are vastly overhyping that KO. I'm sorry. But Max Holloway, if you're setting the all-time striking record, you don't have crazy power. That's just the truth. Justin Gaethje, has good power for lightweight. Justin Gaethje's going to beat Max Holloway. I think it's as simple as that. Now, what makes me so confident in this pick? Listen, if Justin Gaethje beat Rafael Fiziev. He beat Dustin Poirier. Two people. I picked Justin Gaethje to beat Dustin Poirier. I picked Rafael Fiziev to beat Justin Gaethje. Because after the Rafael Fiziev fight, that proved to me Justin Gaethje's actually technical. Like, bro, we somehow gained brain cells in between fights. Like, he was called Homer Simpson in his first few fights. The fight with Michael Johnson, bro, they really called him the Homer Simpson of lightweight. Now he's putting people to sleep with a head kick. Trevor Whitman has really taken Justin Gaethje to a different level in terms of mixing up boxing, strike. Like, he really is. I think he's going to destroy Max Holloway. The more I think about the it's not as close as people think it's going to be. I keep going back and forth on it. But when I mean by back and forth, I mean, like, how long is this fight going to go? Like, I'll do a bigger breakdown for this later on. All I'm going to say is Max Holloway relies on lateral movement to set up his strikes. Justin Gaethje is going to cripple Max Holloway with leg kicks, destroying that lateral movement. And by the time Max Holloway is having trouble moving on those legs, he's going to come, like, bro's going down. Justin Gaethje's going to retain the BMF title. Now, this is where it was interesting, and not enough people are talking about this. What are we doing with Islam? Like, when this fight got announced, I'm not even kidding, I got tagged in a post, and he opened it up with an interesting thing. He said, Justin Gaethje is never going to get a title shot. Let me tell you what's really going on here. The manager of Islam Makahchev and Justin Gaethje is a guy named Ali Abdelaziz. You guys know who that is. But in case anybody else doesn't know, Ali Abdelaziz is probably like top 5 most powerful people in the UFC just based off the roster of fighters that he has. Islam Makahchev and Justin Gaethje is all we need to know. Justin Gaethje, for a dude who has never won the undisputed title, I know he won the interim, for a guy who's never won the undisputed, he makes wild money. That's because of Ali. Ali gets a cut of this. He also has Islam Makahchev. Now, logically, you do Justin Gaethje versus Islam Makahchev. I think that this is Ali. The more I read it, the more I think this is Ali. He says, June 8th, UFC pay-per-view versus Gaethje. November, Madison Square Garden. The winner of Oliveira and Arman. February 25. Anybody. So, this is what I think his plan was by this time, and I'm going to tell you how I think it's changed. His plan was, obviously, Justin Gaethje. I think they're relying on Arman the win. I think Oliveira sells better against him, but I think Islam doesn't want to fight Charles again purely because he's already beat the guy. He doesn't want that to be used against him. February 2025, he wanted that to go up to welterweight and fight the then champion, either Leon Edwards or Shavkat Rakhmonov. We'll see how that turns out. How I think it's going to change. I'm hearing some rumors about UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia. I'm hearing some pretty interesting rumors. So, let it be known. International Fight Week and June 8th are pretty close. Conor McGregor is coming back on International Fight Week. The UFC Saudi Arabia. I will actually look up. I want to get this right. UFC Saudi Arabia. Postponed until June. This just happened. From March 2nd, it's moving to... Where is it? Possibly in June. We don't have a full date on that. All I'm saying, how out of the realm of possibility is it that Islam Makahchev headlines a fight night at UFC Saudi Arabia? Normally, I wouldn't even consider that until you realize how much money Saudi Arabia can afford to throw around. Islam Makahchev undoubtedly could sell very well in a Saudi Arabian card. The other person that was rumored to be the headliner for this, I shit you not, is Sarah Putin. I'm sorry, Sarah Putin's not a big enough name. He's just not. Like, who are you going to put Sarah Putin against to headline a UFC fight night in Saudi Arabia? I understand they'll sew up for anybody who's Muslim, but at the same time, like, we got to make a decent card for everybody else that's going to watch it. I think an easy way to do that is to put Islam Makahchev against a Justin Gaethje who is coming off a fight against Max Holloway. I think he beats Max Holloway. This is going to be at 155, 5 rounds, just in case he wins that. I can see them making him make a quick turnaround and having another fight with Islam Makahchev. I say another, I just mean another fight close together. Or we're going to have to do late on International Fight Week. Islam Makahchev is going to fight on the same card as Conor McGregor. The only reason I don't think that's going to happen, Ali Abdelaziz and Conor McGregor have beef. Here's the facts. If they're going to be fighting on the same card, who's headlining that? I want to know who's going to be the headliner. Conor McGregor's not going to give up the main event spot of his comeback. The comeback that he is calling the biggest comeback in combat sports. It doesn't matter if that's true or not. That's what he thinks. To Islam Makahchev. Islam Makahchev deserves to be the main event. He is the actual champion of lightweight to really these two contenders that are going to be cosplaying as 185ers. He should, but they're not going to do that. Easy solution. Make this the main event of UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia. Fuck it, make it a numbered... Do something. You can afford to throw around some money. It's Saudi Arabia. And then you keep Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. Please don't do this 185 bullshit. At least make it like a 170. You can make weight at 170, please. And that way, this makes this a little bit more interesting. I think Oliveira and Arment is still going to be at Madison Square Garden. I like that for November. And February 2025, obviously, that's so far out. That's hard to say, but I think that's still going to be on. Last thing I'm going to be talking about, Jim Miller versus Bobby Green. Dude, I'm okay with this if Jim Miller said, oh, I'm not going to retire at UFC 300. Psych, I just wanted to get on the card, and I plan on actually making a title run. You know what would have been real funny? If they just did Jim Miller versus Paddy Pimblett. Imagine if his final fight in the organization is humbling Paddy Pimblett. Like, just effing everything up for the UFC. It's like, well, shit, we lost a superstar. Like, that would be pretty funny, admittedly. Now, I said it in the beginning of the video. Jim Miller versus Tony Ferguson was a slam dunk fight. Easy retirement fight. You could have just done Paul Felder versus Bobby Green. I thought they were going to do Paddy versus Bobby Green, but I think the UFC is kind of sweating right now. And I'll be real with you. If Jim Miller beats Bobby Green, they're going to do Jim Miller versus Paddy Pimblett. Unless Jim Miller retires, which would be pretty funny, again, admittedly. But that's what I'm thinking the UFC is planning. Yeah, I got a message for what do I think about UFC 300. Honestly, I like it. I'm not hating on it. No. What do I think is going to be next? I think the next big announcement, I think they're waiting on another fight to make with it. Again, to soften the blow. Is Bilal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards. According to Ariel Helwani, actually, they are targeting this fight for UFC 300. But funny enough, if anything happens with Bilal Muhammad, Shavkat Rakhmonov is on call, basically. So expect Shavkat Rakhmonov to be the replacement fighter if anything happens to Bilal mysteriously. And, bro, what a rough living for Bilal Muhammad, bro. If you can't fight during Ramadan for any reason, they'll just give it to Shavkat. And I know Shavkat is Muslim, I do believe, which is interesting that they're doing Shavkat and Bilal Muhammad during Ramadan, and they're just begging on one of them to, step out. And I think the other fight that could be on it, I'd have to wait for Soren Strickland and Dricus du Plessis because I think if Dricus wins, they do Dricus versus Israel. If Strickland wins, they do Strickland versus Hamza. Hamza's already fight during Ramadan. He fought during the Gilbert Burns fight. That was during Ramadan. I could see that being the case for UFC 300. In that case, this is a good card. This is a good card. I don't hate on it too much. Build up the prelims. Don't slack on the prelims, please. But other than that, no, that UFC 300 is looking pretty solid. Tell me what you think in the comment section. I got one other video I got to pump out today, basically saying Strickland might be a bigger star than O'Malley right now. And that's not even meant to be like a clickbaity thing. I'm starting to believe Strickland is becoming a bigger star than O'Malley, which is concerning for the UFC. Expect that video out later today. Thank you guys for supporting. And if you haven't subscribed already, if you're this far, bro, just subscribe. Adios, guys. Thank you for watching.